Hey guys, what's up? Lately, the debates about GTO versus exploitative poker are getting hotter and hotter, and I want to share one flaw in the concept of GTO that is very often heavily underestimated. I see my students and also in our community people debating about big hero calls where you make very, very little EV, but we want to be doing it because GTO says so. And yeah, they're jerking off because they make a GTO approved play, but there is one essential point missing, which is that GTO does not consider edge. And let me explain you the following. And I highly encourage you to take those 5 minutes because it's going to be so essential for your poker career and it will save you a lot of money. So the main goal for GTO is if two players are playing against each other and they play perfect GTO, is assuming that nobody has an edge. When nobody has an edge, or basically the main goal is that I want to neutralize my opponent's EV. So if they play against each other in the long run, that nobody deviates, of course, right? They play purely GTO, they play 100% balance in every single spot, so there's nothing to exploit. It's the perfect environment, or it's the perfect strategy for both players. And nobody will make any money in the long run according to GTO. However, there's still variance. So there's still going to be a winner, of course, because someone is going to be running better than the other player. It might still be the case they end up break even, but this is where variance comes into play. So this is where they basically let the poker gods decide. However, how is it in the real world? How is it at the poker tables? Well, there we have an edge, and especially in tournament poker, we have a future game. So whenever you make a hero call, this might be approved by GTO, this is a bad call simply because given that you're supposed to be one of the better players in the field, and if you do some studying, you will certainly already have an edge on a lot of players in your tournament. That means you're going to be finding better spots on average, and you should skip this spot even though if you sacrifice a tiny fraction of the EV. And this is crucial, and this is something that GTO does not consider in its simulation, and this is a big flaw. And the better you are, the higher your win rates, the more you should skip those marginal spots. And if you look up a sim, if you run an analysis and you see, well, it's break even or I slightly make NEV, you should not tap on your shoulder and say, well, I made the GTO approved play. No, you should actually say, well, it's actually kind of stupid, because if you take these plays over and over again, what you're saying is, and listen to me, this is very important, is you agree to the most fundamental concept of GTO poker is that both parties do not have an edge. So if you take those plays, you're essentially telling yourself, I don't have an edge, my opponent does not have an edge, that's why we play GTO poker, which is pretty bad because you want to have an edge. So if you have to take these plays over and over again and you want to justify it, you're basically saying you don't have an edge, because otherwise you wouldn't take those super marginal spots. Think about it. I mean, of course, it really depends. I cannot go too much into detail on how much of an EV you should skip or give you precise numbers. Okay, if your ROI is XYZ, then you should be skipping with 40 big blinds these marginal EV sports. This is just for you to give you a little bit of an encouragement to really put things into perspective. And if you look up sims and you see, okay, you don't really make a lot of EV by hero calling or bluffing, then it's definitely better to skip it. I highly recommend watching one of our most popular videos here on this YouTube channel, where I share a webinar. And I was actually, to my surprise, because usually the longer content, an hour or 2 hours, is not so popular on YouTube. However, this was very popular because I was sharing where the EV comes from and showing you guys how much EV and how much money you actually really make with value bets and good spots when we have good hands versus making money with bluffs. And this was really eye-opening. We're going to put it in the description as well. So I highly recommend checking this out if you want to dive into detail and you want to see some specific numbers that I'm sharing there, and because it needs a little bit more elaboration. If you really want to take the time to check it out, I highly recommend it. So again, basically GTO poker, nobody has an edge. That's why if I play against one of the best players in the world, if I play against Isaac Hexton, I'm not trying to, like exploit him. He's not going to have a lot of big leagues. I basically then I have to admit, well, I'm not gonna, make a lot of money against him. So I'm trying to play more GTO poker to not give him an opportunity to make money against me. So this is where, two very good players are playing against each other. This is not applicable to 99.2% of the players out there. So you need to take that into consideration. And one of the most fundamental things in poker, especially tournament poker, and also Pio does not, or GTO does not consider future game, and that they're gonna be better spots in the future. If we can somehow incorporate that into the algorithm of GTO, that it considers future game, and depending on how good you are, but I guess that's just way too intricate. This is just going to be way too sophisticated. I don't believe this is going to be happening anytime near in the future. So if this would be possible, I'm pretty sure that Pio would also tell you, all right, you should not be hero folding here. You should not be bluffing here. You should reduce your bluffing frequencies. You should basically having a strategy where you wait for good hands. This is the good old poker. And yeah, if you take these margin spots over and over again, you're essentially admitting that, yeah, you don't really have an edge. That's why you have to follow GTO poker blindly and incorporating it. And listen, guys, this is what I've been doing for many years. And I think if you look at the top players in tournament poker, if you look at the top 10, top 20, and also the players I've shared in my list, a lot of them are doing crazy exploits. If you play cash game, for example, the highest stakes, they're going to be playing more GTO against each other because they barely have any edge, especially if the best players are playing against each other. Again, I'm not against GTO poker. I think it's great for learning. It's really good to get an orientation and then taking it from there. But it's very important to put things into perspective when facing those margin spots, when being in a big spot where you want to be bluffing and you risk your entire tournament life and the pot is 120 big blinds and you generate 0.7 big blinds with your bluff. Are you fucking insane, man? This is, of course, not something you want to take. In every stage, whether it's early stage, mid stage, has also a ICM implication. It's not true when people say there's no ICM in the early game. There is ICM also in the early game. And if it's only just a very, very little, and if we consider it onto that margin spot, then it can certainly turn easily into minus EV. If you also consider your edge, then it's a huge punt. Well, you can also continue saying, well, I made a marginal play. And listen, I have these students, they're playing high stakes, mid stakes, they struggle, they're on a downswing. And one of the main reasons is they started playing way too much GTO poker, trying to be balanced, trying to be heroes in all these different spots. And I'm still doing way too much of this bullshit. You see me doing this on stream. All right, this is enough of a rant. I hope this has helped you and really opened your eyes that, yeah, if you make too many of these calls, too many of these bluffs to play GTO, you're essentially admitting you don't have a big of an edge, which is not the case. That's why learning the GTO fundamentals is important. But then on the real tables, we want to play exploitative poker and not just trying to play GTO approved poker.